Okay, I'm gonna call the meeting to order. It's 4:50 and I'm gonna do roll call. Ben Wynn,
Here.
Molly Kuchawiak,
Here.
Tamika Vukovic,
Here.
Danielle Bailey is here. And I'm gonna move on to item C, agenda approval. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second? Oh, thank you. All in favor, we'll do a voice vote. Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. All right, the agenda is approved. So let's move on to item 2A, our discussion item, approval of new staff contracts for the 2021-2022 school year. Allison, do you want to?
Sure.
Okay.
So you guys received a document. I apologize. It originally went to finance and personnel. I believe that's where it was linked. So I just sent it to you recently, but I thought it would be easier to look at rather than trying to page through a bunch of contracts. So you can see all the hires that we made this summer. It's been a very, very busy summer of hiring up until the last minute. We still have a couple more that we'll actually be bringing to next week's meeting because we didn't get them done quite in time for tonight. But if you look at it, we've got a reading interventionist coach, which is a newer position. It was something that we realized right away was a gap because we didn't have any interventionists. So basically what we did is we hired people that had the literacy licensure or the math so that they could also assist teachers with coaching. So they'll work with students on intervention, but then also coach teachers, which will give Jenica some boots on the ground so that she's not doing some of that like in the classroom kind of stuff. So that'll be helpful for those positions. So those would be the new ones. Everything else is pretty much the music one we already talked about. Everything else is pretty much just replacing staff that left or retired or anything like that. So what we did, and I'm like obviously not going to talk specific salary, but what Ms. Johnson and I ended up doing was as we started like negotiating with teachers and hiring, we started to sort of create a pay scale because we don't have anything. So that's also work we need to engage in this year so that we can have some pay equity. But what we based it on was what they're currently making along with comparables in the area. So we would pull comparable positions, like if they had a master's degree or a special licensure, we would find staff in the area that also had similar qualifications and were working in similar positions. So that's what we use. So the principals would do go through the interview process, do the reference checks, send the reference to us, the recommended candidate. Lindsay would pull comparables. We would have a discussion around what we wanted to offer the candidate. And then that's how we would move forward with the offers. For different staff, we established pretty much a starting salary for like a brand new teacher and then sort of worked from there. The district does do a pretty nice stipend if you've got a master's degree. So that, you know, obviously was taken into account for staff that had master's degrees. And as you can see, we've got a pretty big range of experience with some staff being brand new to the profession. We've got quite a few in that 3 to like 5 year range. And then we've got some pretty veteran experienced staff as well that we're pulling in, especially for some of those coaching and intervention positions.
I have a question.
So does anyone have any questions
ahead.
for Allison?
Yep, Tamika said
Go
she had a
ahead.
question.
Go ahead, Danielle, first.
Okay, I just want to clarify. So the two new positions are the reading interventionist and coach interventionist, and the rest
Yeah.
are fills, filling.
So there are actually 3 and they should all be coded the same. So the first one is reading and should be coach interventionist. And then on line 5 is also coach interventionist. And then again, oh, actually there's 4, line 16 and line 17. So for each building, for Parkway and for Glen Hills.
Okay, maybe I'm looking at, okay, right. Okay, and then I'm sorry, I missed this meeting. We talked about the music teacher. Does the music teacher have their choral license?
Yes.
Okay, okay. And then Tamika, you can go ahead. I'm formulating this one.
I'm just, what's the difference between the reading specialist / coaches compared to what we just got rid of a bunch of the coordinators?
Mhm.
I would need more information on the coordinators. Do you know, Lindsay? I don't know. I mean, that happens. I don't think that they were doing intervention. I don't know what they were doing, but they weren't providing intervention or coaching teachers.
Yeah, they were. That's
Yeah.
the whole point. They were all coaching teachers. Ben, do you know? You
I
might
think
know
they were-
because you were a teacher there.
Yeah, I don't know exactly because I taught math and it was mostly, I think it was for readers and writers workshop, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh,
Is that,
um,
I don't know. I probably shouldn't answer because I don't know for sure.
Well, you know somewhat more than we would ever know. We weren't in, what
I-
we were. That's
I
the
thought they
point.
coached. I thought they coached teacher. What? So by the way, is this closed session or is this open?
this is open, which is why we're not saying names.
This is open, which is why we're not saying names. Okay.
Yeah.
It
For
was.
specific salaries.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Well, all of
it
this
was-
is public record anyway, so the salaries are public too. So go
Yeah.
ahead.
Well, no, I was under the impression that some of the coaches did. It was more like teacher coaching, not student coaching, because I remember Rob Gladham used to do. Sorry, well, he's gone though. But anyway, he used to do like actual interventions with math. But then they took him out and they had him teach math. So like there were people who did interventions, then that sort of went away. And I think it was more teacher coaching.
So maybe
I don't
also
know.
you could just tell us how you see these current roles. What are they? Are they student how are these current roles going to function? That would probably help.
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. So typically in most districts, you have a staff member who is either specializing in literacy or math. So we have two for each, one of each for each building. And then what they do is because they have that reading license, they can do a tier 3 intervention for students. Anybody who's in a tier 3 needs a licensed literacy teacher. So they can do that tier 3, and then they can also do coaching of teachers in the classroom. It could honestly fluctuate every year. So if we were implementing a big literacy curriculum this year, they'd be probably heavy on the teacher side. You know what I mean? And be doing a little bit more of this year with COVID and with learning gaps. I think they're going to be doing a lot of work with kids. I think that's going to be their primary focus this year.
Okay.
The other thing I just wanted to add was Rita, or two of the people that are no longer with the district did not have their reading license. So two of the people we hired do have their reading license, and the other one is a replacement for a staff member that left.
Okay.
Well, I just don't want to, I'm just asking because if we just got rid of a bunch of people for the reasons that we didn't know what they did, and adding new people for what they, into these same jobs, I want to know what they did. That's all.
Yeah, and I don't know I hear you, Tamika. I don't know the whole story of the coordinators, but what my impression was, many of them were just given teacher contracts, and they should have always been teacher contracts. And
Well,
I
it
don't know why
wasn't-
they were called coordinators.
And I get that.
Yeah.
I get that. It was more so though, but we were paying, and I'm trying to pull this up. This is just becoming a pain for me.
I feel like maybe you're saying like if we weren't aware as a board or a district about sort of the efficacy of these previous roles, it would make sense to check in about how they're being utilized and how efficient, how effective these roles will be, down the line, whether it's a year from now and we look back and say, that might be a good thing to understand how these roles are actually going, how they are used.
Mhm.
Yeah, like I said, I think it started out as interventions with kids one-on-one, then it shifted to teacher coaching, and now it kind of sounds like it's going to go to something in between.
Mhm.
Yeah. So just to keep everyone on track, communications is set to meet at 5. So I want to make sure, Tamika, do you feel like you were heard or answered?
No, I didn't, but let's keep going. This is why I don't like short meetings, because never mind, keep going, just go.
So Tamika, one of the things is, so we've got staff that started working today that signed contracts.
That's
but
fine.
this is
I understand why you're doing it.
No, but I wanted to say that we can go deeper into this discussion during personnel. So it doesn't have to end the discussion is what I'm saying. So we've
Okay.
got personnel and finance tonight, and we've got the same spreadsheet. So we were
That's-
hoping to continue this conversation.
Go ahead.
Okay.
well, are you on that meeting, Tamika? Is that your committee?
No, I'm not, but
Oh,
go
okay.
ahead.
The last thing I wanted to just touch base with Allison, and you may not have this data, but I was curious, like looking at the new hires, about like racial demographic data, like kind of looking at that now, because I know that last year, I believe we lost several staff and teachers of color, which, some constituents were concerned about. And so that's something I'd like to follow up on, not something I need to know today, but I'd like to understand our updated demographics of our staff and whatnot.
Definitely. And I'll just let you know, it was definitely an area of focus.
Okay.
It was definitely an area of focus during interview.
Okay. Okay, great. So is any other discussion, any other questions? Hearing none. So this is a discussion item, but are you asking for approval of this?
Yeah, this should have been this should have been a vote.
Okay, can we vote on it even though it's listed as a discussion item? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Is anyone willing to make a motion to approve these new staff contracts?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Ben, second. Let's do a vote. I can do a roll call vote, or let's do a voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm abstaining.
Tamika is abstaining. Okay. With 3 in favor and 1 abstaining, the vote is approved. So the contracts are approved, I believe. And I believe that is all we have. So is there a motion to adjourn?
So
So
moved.
moved. I'll
So-
second it.
Molly and Ben for the motions today. Okay. All right. So then we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody. I will see some of you at communications.
All right. Thank
It's a
you.
different
Thank you,
Zoom
guys.
link, right, Allison?
Yep,
Different
same
Zoom?
link.
Oh, same
It's
link.
the
So we
same
have-
link.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yep.
then
So
get
stay
out of
if you
here if you
like.
want, or stay if you want.
So I can tell you that nobody was waiting, so we're okay. It's nobody in the waiting room.
Are we that boring to everyone? Fine. Okay. I'm going to pull up our agenda for tonight's meeting, and Jenica should be joining us, right?
I'm gonna go. I'll see you guys later.
Bye,
Okay.
Ben.
She said she could jump on if we wanted her to. Do we need her to jump on? Otherwise, we have Karen for the
Oh,
website.
well, if Karen can talk about I was hoping Jenica would be able to talk with us on the communications plan, but if
Sure.
she's otherwise.
I can ask her too. I think she's at her birthday dinner.
Oh, it's her birthday?
Yeah.
No, stop. No, hard
Yeah.
stop. That's okay. Well, that's okay. Have you talked with her a little bit about that at all? The communications plans, or no?
Yeah, we just talked about how to take what you guys have talked about,
And what
balance it
you're
with
working
strategic
on.
planning, and like how we can set some goals for this year.
Okay. If you've talked with her a little bit, that's fine. I will.
And I can always bring it back too,
Okay.
and like get you
that's-
more information.
Okay, great. Let me pull up the agenda.
then you're-
Okay. And Karen's here, right? Hi.
Yep. Yep.
Okay. Hi, Karen.
Hi, Danielle.
I miss seeing your face. Why the black box?
You know, no offense, but I don't miss the meetings too much.
Okay. All right. Well,
She was talking about your face instead of the Glendale-River Hills book.
Oh, the book, yeah.
well, that should be an item of discussion as well. So I'm gonna call the meeting to order then. Roll call. Molly Krachowiak,
Here.
Danielle Bailey's here. And is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
And I will second. All in favor, voice vote.
Aye.
Okay, let's move on to Karen, who can give us a website update.
Allison, can you make me a co-host? I don't think I am. I'm not used to joining the meetings from this end. Great. Okay, I'm going to share my screen, which will have the kind of the updated look. Okay. Are we seeing it?
Ooh,
Mm-hmm.
nice.
Yeah. Good photos make a big difference, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
and less headers. My God, our website right now has like 8
I know.
headers.
It's very basic. There are still some things, some information bits that I'm kind of working on and waiting and working with the admin team on developing what they want. But I
Okay.
think we've got a really good start for it's all kind of structurally, it all just sort of came together in the last few weeks, thankfully.
Okay.
It just started to click when I was like, I get it now. It
Mhm.
just takes a while.
Mhm.
So I just kind of want to walk you through a few things.
Yeah.
And, like this is our homepage, obviously.
Okay.
We've got our district news and our district calendar, and that's just about it. So everything else you go through these steps here where you can go up here to
Okay.
Glen Hills Middle School. I'll take you to Glen Hills. And I don't know if you've noticed,
Okay.
but we have a couple of new logos too.
Oh,
Yep. Anna Young, she likes to do logos. So she
cool.
recreated Glen Hills and Parkway.
Oh,
Oh, I
good.
love it.
Yeah. So we've got these, these quick links that are both on the homepage as well as the school district pages.
Sure.
And
Okay.
if you click here, Infinite Campus on the quick link, it doesn't take you where it's supposed to. We're not up. That's not good. We'll go on to that. We'll start over in the homepage. We've got a little bit of information here where, I'm working with the principals and they're kind of starting out some letters that could be linked to other spots in there. We've got the school news, which will be, just like we had on the regular pages, but it's just a little bit more clear. The calendar is going to always default to the district calendar with the exception of Glen Hills, because if everything is approved and we get to do activities and athletics again, then that calendar will also specifically be here, like kind of merged in with the district calendar.
Okay.
So I'm gonna go back to.
Karen, can I ask you that welcome message? So is that meant to be temporary, or it looked like something like, is there going to be like sort of a fixed welcome this about us type thing, or will that be constantly updated or changing?
No, it can always be updated and changed, whatever the principals want. I walked through with them about 4 weeks ago and said, these are what you can do. You can do videos, you can do pictures, you can do messages that change, information that changes, and they're still getting me information and
Okay.
deciding what they want to do. So, like I said, it's the structure is here, but all the content is not quite there yet. So there's Parkway information. If you were to click on all news, it would take you to this page, which was right now there's only 2 things, but it's all in columns, and it'll just give you every single news story.
Okay.
So yes, I think when you're talking about Glen Hills, yeah, this message here.
I like the welcome message.
Yeah, that's her welcome message, and it's actually a welcome back letter that is going to go out to families. And then here you could click more, see the entire letter. Anna likes to do for her Thursday folders a video.
Yeah.
And so I thought that'd be a great place to every week focus on her video.
Cool.
Also, we thought a Thursday folder quick link would be really smart, because that's really all what parents wants to know about is all those flyers that go home. So that'll link directly there without it being too hard to find. Let's say I'm going to go back to the district page and show you also, if you're going to go to news, this is just about all of our information here. So Allison has written kind of her own welcome letter. And we have our mission and vision, which I know is part of our next process of, revamping all that. Each page, district, Glen Hills, and Parkway will all have their own, they'll have their own directory. This one is it's all school. I wanted it to be all school for the district, but it's it's specific to Parkway for Parkways and specific to Glen Hills for Glen Hills. This is an example of, you click on the name right here and you get to see where she is, what her title is. The email is actually here, so you can copy and paste it, school number. And once we get, it takes a little bit for us, maybe like the first couple of weeks of school, to make sure we get all of the extensions correctly, because a lot of times they switch rooms, some people switch rooms. So then I'll go back and put extensions in, so it'll be really obvious to find whoever you're looking for.
No more security captures, 8 million.
No, isn't that great? Because it never worked.
Yeah, no, Allison and Lindsay, you weren't lucky enough to experience this, but to email a teacher was the hardest thing to do through our website, and you couldn't get their email without anyway, it was terrible. So this is great. Is the directory under the news button?
It is, yeah, something looks a little off on here for me. I think this is supposed to be the about button. I'm not exactly sure what I
okay.
did to change it to
Okay.
news.
That's okay.
So,
okay.
Yeah, I do believe
So some tweaks still, but
oh yeah, absolutely. And sometimes you put things in and then they link kind of goofy, but I've had a really a lot of help on this. I have these weekly meetings with someone who walks me through things, and it's usually something I'm like, I can't figure this all out, and it's usually something as simple as, oh, you just didn't hit the publish button. So it's not a very complicated process, but it is when you're new. And
so Final Site has been good about being about support.
Yes, really good.
Awesome.
So it's been nice to have these weekly meetings where they can just walk me through silly mistakes and teach me. So it's been great. And I think, we're going to get to the departments. Right now we have curriculum, which was brought over from our old site. So, it kind of gives you the look of what we're going to do, which I think is nice, is these little accordions. I think I showed you that before. So pages don't have to be, you just scroll down for miles before you can get information.
Yeah.
Yes. Same with, like, if I go to school board, I'm sorry, I'm jumping around a little bit.
No, it's okay.
Same thing. You can, board
that's
members, and Danielle and Ben are the only ones who have given me their pictures.
Oh my God.
So waiting for
Headshot.
I think Molly might be in witness protection. She's always got her black box
Keeps
on.
the
and Mrs.
headshot.
K.
I'll just put one of those smiley face emojis over your picture.
Sure.
Oh my
Oh,
God,
that's
I'll
great.
do it.
That's great. And that has our info. I like it.
Yep.
Can I ask some sort of big picture questions?
Sure.
So when will the new site replace the old site?
Well, my goal is September 1st. I think it'd be nice when we go back to school.
Okay.
But sometimes I guess it depends on how everybody feels. If some of the information is not completely put in, I mean, do you want to wait a little longer? We do have the entire month of September.
No.
No, you don't want to?
I have a feeling, well, we've talked about this, the website working group talked about this, and we had even talked about taking the whole site down and putting up the basic information until we had a new site, because honestly, our old site is so frustrating to people that I think it would be better to go with something newer and cleaner, and then, just let people know they can reach out for certain information if they need it. But I would prefer having something like this up as soon as possible when you feel like it's ready, right?
Yep. Well, I think it takes a week. They say that it takes a week when we want to launch and go live. So if I could have, another 5 days and a weekend, I feel like I could be more, I think it'd be ready. I think it's almost ready to go. I really do. And there are pages too where I can just turn them off. And, then people won't say, well, I can't find what I'm looking for. I'll just turn it off. And at least I think in the beginning of the school year, everybody just wants to know about the news and the calendar and how to reach their teacher.
Yeah. So one thing I would say, like looking at the old site even now and looking at this one, I'm wondering, every communication that's been sent out in the last week from like Allison or from other people with very pertinent information, I'm not totally sure where that all lands on the website. On the new website, maybe that's like a district communication, or maybe it falls under superintendent communications, or I'm not sure, but I feel like that stuff should be, if possible, and not a total pain, easily accessible on our website, because I've been seeing posts everywhere, Facebook, and people messaging, just being like, where's this information? And I know it's been emailed. I know it's on Infinite Campus. There may have been calls, but if people are going to our website first, it should be easy for them to see that stuff too. And I don't know if that's possible, but.
Oh, of course it's possible. We can do something within, within this, which should say about, but, we can have superintendent communication, or we can even have another one that said, Glen Hill's principal communication. Just
Yeah.
maybe we could even put it all together, just like past emails or posts or
Yeah,
whatever.
district
think that's a really-
communications
yeah.
or something.
Sure.
I think that's a really fabulous idea. I'm thinking, like you said, Danielle, like district communication. Because that way, if there's something from Parkway or Glen Hills that we feel is really important, we just throw it in there. So it
Right.
could be from any,
Yeah.
I think that's a really good idea.
Yeah.
Because people actually have been really helpful on social media and like copied links and like
Yes,
post stuff
yes.
in there for
Yeah,
people.
exactly.
So it would be nice just to have a spot. I agree.
Yeah. I agree.
Yep, that's an easy fix.
And then so Karen, I guess my other question is about sort of managing the web page. I know this is so much work, and we had talked about, I think it had been mentioned that maybe the school secretaries might be helping, but I just want to make sure, I want to understand if you feel like you have support and if we need, or how that's going to work. Who's going to be running, updating, monitoring? Is that being discussed and figured out?
I mean, I feel like I have a lot of support. We have a really good, everybody communicates so well right now, and it's just so easy to say, what's going on? I need news stories, and people will give me stuff.
Yeah.
I think even our current website is, as annoying as it is, has been good because we are all talking to each other and
Yeah.
figuring out what really needs to be said. So
There are-
I'm good. And I definitely eventually want to be able to train the secretaries, because I do believe, as the school secretaries, I do believe they can easily do it. I can teach them how to post an image like the Parkway Panther logo, and then, post this, that'll just go right here. I'm working on figuring out how to set up a post, like a news post is what they call it, and then just, click a button and it goes to Facebook. So it's
Yeah.
all kind of intertwined.
Okay, that's good to hear. The two little things is that on the old website currently, I've noted, on the calendar there, we don't have school start times. And I think that might be helpful to put that information directly onto our calendar if it's going to
Yep.
be up for a couple more weeks and people
Good point.
have been asking for that. And then on the current website, any COVID and reentry information, I found it yesterday. I cannot find it today. That's the nature of our website. But the reentry book and the COVID information that you sent out, Allison, I wonder if there's a way to make that prominent on our homepage.
On the old website?
On the old and the
Okay.
new, if it seems relevant, but
Yeah.
either that's district, but the virtual learning tab, if I go there, I would think it'd be there. Then you go to the website, and it's just, so that's just one other comment about sort of giving people access to that sort of pertinent information in the interim and going
Okay.
forward. I feel like that should be pretty easy to find.
Well, I did take something down last night because I was on the Facebook page and saw somebody was saying, well, are we virtual? Or, are we 4 days or
Okay.
5 days? And I kind of went
Mhm.
into a panic, and I thought,
Yeah.
I'm just going to pull that off because I don't know
Yeah.
exactly where families are getting that information from.
Okay.
And, I can easily put it back on, but it was just sort of
Okay. Well,
what are they reading on the
I think
website that's probably out of date?
Yeah, exactly. So I think that whatever information we want to share about the protocols, about COVID, whatever that book we're still using or whatever, I think that should be somewhere. But so I couldn't find it because you took it down. So that makes sense. Good. That's great. But yeah, that was my only stuff on the website. Molly, do you have anything about the website other than thank you for Karen for continuing to make this super awesome, and everyone who's helping you?
Thanks, Danielle.
No, I want to reiterate, I know that this is a ton of work, Karen, but I think it looks really clean, and I like the idea of turning off all the pages so that parents don't go to a blank page, because they'll just cause even more of an uproar amongst our community, because they're going to look for something and it won't be there. And then you'll get the questions, or Allison will get the questions. So I think turning that off for now is a great idea.
Yeah,
But
this
I'm
is
looking forward to navigating through it.
Good. Well, and I'm hoping it's going to be simple enough. And this is an example of, I don't have anything for technology right now. So I'm just going to turn it off until I get information.
There you go.
So Karen, first of all, I just want to say thank you also, because it's a ton of work, and I want to apologize because I know that the reason some of these pages aren't filled is because she's asking us and it's going on the list. And then it's like, there's so many things to do to get ready for teachers and staff. So some of that's on us. As I looked at that technology page, I'm going to share with you, if you don't have it already, the new teacher slideshow that Jenica created today, because I bet you there's a lot of good information on there that we could just use on the website. Because it was introducing all that stuff to new staff with like pictures of staff and who the people are and who the supports are. And we could probably flow that right into the website.
Mhm.
Oh, and that's also one other little detail thing too, is in the directory, once I get everybody's pictures, I can import them all too. So you can see a face next to that name too. It's much more
Great.
personal.
Great.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to, sorry, I'm pulling it up again. Okay, we're gonna move on to 2B, which is the communication plan. And this does not have to be a large discussion, but I wanted to just bring it back to this, to our committee again, because Molly, I don't know if you were on this is something we were sort of talking about with Teresa, I think, and Jenica. So it's something I wanted to have this committee look at again, and that we're talking about with Jenica and Allison. And so there was attached communications plan sample. Jenica had done a lot of work about sort of reviewing other districts' communication plans. And I think doing something like this for our district would be amazing. And there's various ways we could go about it. So we were just kind of surveying the landscape. But essentially a communications plan would sort of ID our communications needs, ID stakeholders, channels of communications. You could create guide and goals for each of those channels. You talk about, how do we talk about incidents? How do we talk about emergencies? And just things like that. Because I think right now a lot of that's really muddled. And it seems like it's a great time as we go into strategic planning to focus on communications with that sort of hone in on it, that, you know, and go deep with that. So that's something that I guess I was looking to Allison and Jenica for some guidance on how the committee could support that work or be involved in that work, and how like Allison might see that going. And yeah, so I mean, I think that was the conversation I kind of wanted to get started and kind of think about how this committee could help move that work along.
So my wondering is, would you want to start diving into create like a really meaty communication plan based on the things that Jenica researched, the one that you shared with me? Or would you want to, because we're going to fold that into strategic planning, would you want to this year say, here's our goal for communication? Like, here are maybe some strengths, areas of strength, areas of growth. What are our goals? And then come up with some strategies and have sort of a, do you know what I'm saying? Like what are we doing? Like, I don't know which way you'd
the
rather
place
go.
Jenica and I had ended at was kind of looking at like, how do we ID even what our needs are? How do we ID our strengths and weaknesses? Some people do it through surveys. Some people form like a separate committee, or some people get an audit even, right? Have someone come in. So we were kind of at that point where we're like, does an audit make sense? Like, how do we assess these needs? So,
and I think if you do an audit, they're probably going to do surveys, quite honestly, because how are they going to get the information from families? So we could do surveys if we wanted to.
Right. So I mean, I'm open. The thing that I think is that I think it's too important to put it off on the back burner, because I think that like there are several things that I feel like we should be clear upon, as clear as we can be, about like, how is Facebook utilized? How do you know, I'm like,
no, I have a note in here to talk about Facebook.
Do we expect administrators or board members to respond to things? Because people go there to ask questions. Like, I know you had started working on, I think, a communication plan in terms of like hierarchy of communication. I think that's part of it.
Yeah, there's so many different areas.
But I think it's like, I think it would be good for us to understand and develop like guide and go to look at these plans and kind of start doing that in conjunction maybe with strategic planning, just because it is, I don't know. I just feel like to leave it may let it get more muddled. And now we have this opportunity under like new leadership to start fresh. And if you let it keep going, I just get worried about, I get worried about that.
Yeah, no, and no way, no, in no way do I think we would just leave it and be like, okay, we're gonna strategic plan. I just didn't know how deep you wanted to get. I think a survey is always a really good first start. It's really interesting with communication because I don't think I've ever worked anywhere in like however many years it's been now, since 1998, where the community has said like, yes, there's enough communication and it's good enough and it's clear enough. Like it's just not ever happened, I don't think. So I think like us establishing some guidelines around like what this looks like, what appropriate, because I agree with you. I had actually noted something about Facebook. And basically, the note was, as a team, we don't have time to go search for questions on social media, so that sometimes we might stumble across and sometimes we might not. I love those pages for simple stuff like, hey, does anybody know where the school supply list is? Or like, I think that's fabulous that families can like quick jump in and help each other out. Even this week, it was really nice to see people like, there were like quotes from the email, like here's from the email, like
Right.
that was really helpful that people could help each other out. But if there are like serious like misunderstandings or questions, I would always say like directly to us, like send an email, call the school office, something where you're going to get that, because we might not always see it. And it's probably not good for us to engage in social media, to be honest.
Sends a mixed message, like then
Yeah.
people think they're being ignored if somebody stepped in
Exactly.
one time, right? So that's kind of what I mean, and like defining what our channels of communication are and how they're to be used.
Yeah.
I think
What's really nice is even like the district Facebook page. I was looking at it today and the engagements were up like, it was something ridiculous that I didn't even think was a real number, like 4,333% or something. Like, does that even make sense? But that is a nice, like, I wouldn't be having conversations with people, but like you said, so that COVID plan, I was going to post that on there, or like the staggered start times to be able to throw, because I think a lot of people do look at social media. So it's a good way to post things in the website just to give information, but it's not really a conversation.
And Facebook admittedly may have become a default because our website was difficult for folks to find information easily. So they, instead of like instead of doing things that way.
And that's okay. Some people like, it's so easy on your phone. Like, I understand why people use social media. I think it just has to be like, okay, we're posting information or pictures or fun activities or sharing all the great things happening in the district, but it's just being shared. It's not going to be,
it's not a two-way
problem solving. Right. Exactly.
I mean,
Well, and also I think people, it should just be information sharing, because if really someone has a question, they need to go right to the source anyway. And Facebook is not the source. It never is. So I just think I'm glad that that's your position, because I don't think anyone in the district office or either of the schools should be answering any of the questions on Facebook.
Yeah.
Right.
I think the parent pages are different because they're kind of going to each other as a community to try to, you know what I mean? Help each other
sometimes
find
they
things,
tag board members, and they have tagged like Miss Umar used to respond, and parents loved it, and that was a choice she made. But then being sort of an outlier, you know, it just got confused.
It could make everybody else look bad. Right.
Yeah.
I think there's a pretty general consensus right now that nobody wants to use that as a communication method. So I think it's pretty
but it's about setting that, then it's about letting folks know, and then having our robust website and all the other channels of communication being clearly outlined, which we could do by like doing this kind of plan. So I don't know, I just wanted to raise this because I guess I do think it is something we could do in conjunction or as part of your strategic planning, and we can go at a pace that makes sense for.
But I think we could just jump into, like, if we're talking about creating a vision, that's going to take, you know what I mean, getting into the school year and getting that going. But I think a communication plan we could definitely jump into.
Because it should be easy enough to identify the channels we're using now, and then to just have discussions about how we think they should be used, right? And then create and memorialize that. And to do surveys if we need to identify strengths and weaknesses as perceived by community, staff, students, etc. So I think that when it's not Jenica's birthday, to pull her back, like get
Yes.
this conversation going and like, I think she's great at kind of,
Mhm.
as we did with the website, sort of making a plan to get us there.
Yep.
And that we could, try to assist her as a committee and
Yeah.
assist you in kind of formulating that. That would be my ideal, my goal.
Yeah, and I think once we hit September 1st,
Right.
honestly, for us,
Yeah,
some of
busy.
that work's gonna be easier to fit in because all of a sudden the kids are in the building, you know what I mean? And this has been so much planning for that. But I could see like getting into September and blocking off a chunk of time with Jenica to really just have a meeting all about that.
Yeah, and then I think this committee could then sort of check in and figure out the ways we could support that progress, and that would sort of be our reason. What is it? A reason for being de something I can't think. Anyway.
But you know what? I know we've talked to Danielle a little bit about like you're wondering how much to support, and I don't see any reason why, if this is like a major passion of yours, that outside of this committee, if you want to be a part of meetings, do you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't see that as an issue because clearly, you know what I mean? It's something you really care about, and you've got the connection, and the community voice. And so we can just talk about that too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just in this, then making this committee a place where that can be something where we share out what's going on there and touch base. Okay. Molly, anything to add or questions, or do you have thoughts about doing something like this?
I'm sorry, I just missed like the last.
I was just
minute
wondering
and a
if you
half
had
of this
any thoughts, like
conversation.
if you're on board with this committee sort of supporting that work, or if you have any thoughts or questions or.
Yes, I am in support of this committee. I am in support of this committee supporting whatever district office needs to, but I also think there are some decisions, Allison, that you can make on your own and just get started too. Considering your experience in the last district and trusting your judgment as to what you need to do to just get moving in the right direction.
And I think there are some things that we've even started, right? Like I've learned how to do a better auto dialer and using the district page and getting some emails out. So it's not to say like I won't continue, obviously trying to like beef up communication, but I think it's great to have something in a plan, that we can share.
Well, I think we've been talking about it. The community would love to, like, if there were in the end a book where people could kind of understand, or a guide. Some districts have a communications webpage, maybe that's down the line to add to that, which then highlights all of those things that, like, here are the channels, here's communication, here's, if you have a problem, here's how you should communicate that problem. And so that also is just like having something like that everyone can reference. No one's ever going to be happy, like you said, but we at least would have our own goals and benchmarks for, are we doing a good job?
Yeah. Some people will always be happy.
That's the flip side of it. Okay.
And that's something we could research too, Daniel. Like we could look at other websites, because I know some districts have a whole department, right? That's communication. So we
they
could
have a director. Yeah, they'll have a communications director, and wouldn't that be nice? But we're a small district, so
we can still steal ideas.
Yes, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. Exactly. It's why Okay. Well, good. I'm glad we touched base on this, and I don't have anything else to add to this conversation. So if there's nothing else, we don't have anyone else on this call. Oh, we do. Hi, Katie. I see you there. I will move on to 3A, visitor participation. And if anybody would like to speak at this time, now's your chance. Katie.
Nothing like putting somebody on the spot.
Well, I'm just saying. Katie, Katie is very involved on the Facebook pages and stuff, and is a really great person for channeling information we get from the district to the parents, right?
Right. Yeah. I just lurk. I mainly lurk, but I do. But then when people are asking like the bizarre questions and little minutia questions in the Facebook group, then
you know the answers.
I got the answers.
Yeah, I let Katie do a lot of the answers. Yeah. So we appreciate you.
Yeah.
And that's what those parent pages are for, right? So, okay, well, I will close visitor participation and ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And I will second. And thank you, everybody, for a good meeting.
All right, so we have the next meeting at 6.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm in a law call. Andy Franklin
And Franklin's here.
and Molly Krychak is here. Thanks, Andy. I didn't know for sure who was going to be showing up tonight. I thought there was some confusion, so I'm glad you're here.
Yeah.
Okay, so
No,
we'll start.
oh, go ahead.
No, you go
it was
ahead.
it's just crazy times. That's about it.
I know. Tell us about it. Okay, so we'll start by item C, which is the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
I'll second that. Voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, excellent. Now we are on to new business. And first, I really like how this is organized. We've got personnel first and then finance.
Mhm.
And I like how everything on here tonight is discussion.
Yes.
So
It's the
I
wave
hope
of the
you have some
future.
water with you. I like it. All right, so new business discussion for the personnel side. And we'll start with item A, which is a staffing update. So take it away.
So just so you know, Lindsay and I are going to be kind of bouncing off of each other because this is all work we've done together and planned together.
Right.
So we're just kind of both chiming in. That is why.
Okay.
And especially because Lindsay's role obviously is HR and finance. So
Mhm.
a huge part of it. So staffing update, we talked about that a little bit in the 445. We're getting close. Lindsay could give you a little bit of a rundown. I think we've got a couple paraprofessionals. We're really
Yep, we have a
close to
couple
being done.
paraprofessionals, a couple lunchroom supervisory aides, and one more teacher, I believe, that we have left to hire, and then we should be set.
Okay. Got it. All right. So that's it for the staffing update?
Yeah.
Okay, sweet. Let's go on to item B, which is the new hire process.
So again, we did go over this a little bit in the first meeting, but basically Lindsay and I have created a process as we've gone through staffing this summer so that the interview team, which includes the building principal, sometimes teaching and learning, so Jenica sometimes involved. Pretty much I'm keeping myself out of teacher hires just because
Mhm.
I think I should only be really involved in perhaps principal hiring. So they do their interview, they go through their interview process. Once they have a candidate that they'd like to recommend, they do reference checks. They send all of that to Lindsay and I. And then Lindsay looks at comparables. So she immediately pulls like that staff member's current salary and then comparables in the area for somebody with the same experience and oftentimes qualifications, like if there's licensure. And then her and I have a conversation around what is the initial offer. And then she kind of takes it from there. I think we've done a pretty good job because everybody's been pretty happy with what we've offered them. And, we're just trying to get to a place where we have some pay equity. It's tough because we do have some outliers right now in the district. So it's going to be a couple year process, but we want to get to a spot where eventually we'll do some work around like some kind of a pay schedule.
One of the other thing I want to add is, so if we take an offer to a potential hire and they counter, Allison and I have that conversation. Like I don't make a decision right away. I go back to her and then we kind of like haggle back and forth. Is this something we're willing to do? And I would say, there have been a couple candidates where they've walked away because we weren't willing to give them a certain benefit. So I think we've been like doing a really good job of keeping things equitable to make sure that when we hire somebody, we're not having any extra deals for anybody special. Everybody's being hired with that base salary and that's what they get and that's where it ends.
Mhm. Act 10 really hasn't helped with any of this in terms of disparity and it really, and teachers, to no fault of their own, want to negotiate a little now that they can, and that just makes it even more murky for district personnel to make that pay somewhat equitable too.
Absolutely. With
Yeah.
the shortage of teachers, especially in some areas, it's been really a challenge.
Mhm.
And like Lindsay said, a couple of times we've had to stick to our guns a little bit because we're trying to stay consistent and equitable. But definitely there's leverage. And like you said, nobody's fault. It's just, they can
Right.
go to multiple districts, they can interview in a bunch of places and then kind of use that
Right.
as leverage. So
Mhm.
But then
Yeah,
that tells
that's
you
tricky.
sometimes it tells you something about the candidate too, you know,
Right.
depending on how that conversation goes.
Mhm.
So a couple that have walked away, maybe it wasn't such a bad thing.
That makes sense too. Andy, do you have any questions?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I do want to say one thing though. I think it's great that you're making this effort toward trying to be more equitable and have a process. It really does build accountability into the system, and so it's good to see this kind of structure. At some point, it might. I wouldn't want to overcook it, but at some point, once you have the basic plan laid out, it might be good to put it into policy and just say,
Mhm.
look, this is how we want to do it going forward. But I wouldn't mandate that, and certainly not at this point. I think you're doing a really good job of going in that right direction.
And eventually you would like something like that to be in a staff handbook, just so it's really
Yeah,
Yeah,
out there and transparent.
yeah.
Yeah.
right.
And that's something we're gonna work on too, just moving forward. And when we get to like what, December, January, and we start talking about contracts and staffing for next year, if there are any spots with current staff where we can shore that up a little bit and start closing some of those gaps, that's work that we want to do.
Mhm. Okay, thank you. Item C is the tech director discussion.
So I know you guys have been talking for a long time about this need. We talked to some of the partner districts and it just wasn't something that was going to really work this year to try to share that position. So what we did is we got a little bit creative, but not super creative because a lot of districts do this. So we had somebody in a library position that was really just teaching classroom instruction, classroom lessons, that has her library media specialist license. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to take part of her role and have her do instructional technology for both schools, supporting teachers and being some of that in the classroom. So we can take some of that off of Jenica's plate a little bit and then replace that with just an instructional assistant. So we'll have the instructional assistant teaching the classroom lessons. So it's quite a savings because we're not like hiring a tech director or even sharing a tech director. So that'll help support that piece for this year. And then that can be part of the reorganization moving into the next school year, how we want to do that.
Does the person who is taking on this new position-ish have to have any more training before the beginning of the school year to be effective in the classroom? Or does this person already know what she's doing? I mean, like,
Yeah.
she's set, she doesn't need anything else?
So Jenica's working with her. She's really confident that she'll fit into this role and that she'll run with it. But then definitely Jenica will be supporting her through that transition.
And then just one more follow-up question. This person will support teachers in the classroom. So like students in Parkway have their iPads, students at Glen Hills have their Chromebooks, and this individual will help teachers use those pieces of technology just to enhance and help gain get access for all students.
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay. All right. Andy, do you have any questions?
No.
Okay. Then we are moving on to the finance side of new business and discussion. And for item A, we have wages.
Whoops, I already talked about that. Sorry.
You did. That's okay.
So
That's
much
all
for
right.
fighting that out.
That's all right. I think, you know what, I like the division, but I also know, and I think Andy does too, that this will kind of like all kind of be murky together, but that's okay. I know. Best laid plans, right? Okay, well then let's move on to item B, which is, the NATC and Right Way contract.
Actually, B, we've got paraprofessionals. So Lindsay can talk to that a little bit. That's a little different than the teaching.
And on ours, we don't. We have NATC Right Way.
Right.
Oh, so should we talk about paraprofessional pay in the pay equity and hiring?
Sure.
Yeah, if it relates, we can do that.
Yeah, sorry about that.
So what it is we just looked at what our area districts are paying our paras. We had a pretty big range of what we were paying our paras, like I would say probably like a $5 difference. So we wanted to bring them up to what our neighboring districts are to stay competitive. And so we I ran some numbers, factored in what is something that we would be able to offer them to, I would say, make them whole with the rest of the area districts, and it's still within our means for our budget to be able to support them.
Okay.
And the other thing is that we're doing different this year. I don't know if we touched on this, Allison, is that we're having them be part of the Welcome Back Week.
Yeah.
So next week when teachers
Oh,
come back,
good.
paras are going to be a part of that conversation. And so
Right.
they'll be there for those days to be able to help plan, be in the classroom. And we've also just worked with the two principals to make sure that they have a schedule that will be beneficial to support the teachers and they can communicate with each other when there's student time, to just make sure that they can have more time to communicate.
Well, and I think giving a schedule is super helpful because as teachers, they get schedules. And teachers, if I'm a third grade teacher for the past 10 years, I know exactly what I need to do to get ready. With our paraprofessionals, it's a little different. So I'm sure that they'll appreciate the direction too for next week. But I'm glad that they're included in that because they should be included in that.
Yeah, and there's some culture building and some, really good professional development meetings that we want everybody to be a part of, because we want them to know how valued they are, really. I mean, they do some of the toughest work with some of our most challenging students. So, yeah.
I agree. I know what the confusion is now. When I talked about wages, there's actually 3 items under wages. Item A under wages was the new teacher hiring and pay equity. Item B was paraprofessionals and hourly rates. And item C is professional development stipend for professionals.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
All right. So now that we've exhausted wages, let's move on to the finance side and we'll talk about the NATC and right way contract.
Okay, so I'll start off by saying, let me find this, and now I can't find my notes. I got all flustered because it was the wrong agenda, or the agenda item, and I went to look for the other agenda. We have a cheat sheet that we use for notes. Okay. So basically, I just wanted to start out by acknowledging the fact that there were obviously some past communication missteps when it comes to this whole issue. Also connecting to the fact that anything that benefits Nicolay is also going to benefit our kids eventually, because they're all going to go to Nicolay. So if start times are beneficial for high school students, those will be our students at some point. And that the research really does show that the start times that we're implementing do benefit students. But if they don't, we did talk to Right Way, and they reassured us that if we see any negative impact to the start times this year, they will work with us to change them back, and it won't cost us anything additional. So it'd be cost neutral. So because they knew that was a big concern. The other piece that I know was a concern is that around business managers and that vote. So business managers have agreed that they would step aside when it comes to voting for anything that has an instructional impact, which clearly start times did. I haven't received any phone calls, emails, or concerns from families about the new start times. So I think, that's a positive. Obviously, they haven't started it yet, but pretty much it's just been jokes about lots of the families that we saw at the annual update had students in both buildings. So they were joking with each other that now he gets to sleep in early and now she has to get up. So it was kind of more of just banter, but there really weren't a lot of serious concerns. And I haven't received any communication from parents around it.
Okay.
And the fact that busing information is going out this week. So it's one of those things where it's we know that there are concerns with how this was perhaps handled or communicated or laid out. And so those issues definitely moving forward, we don't want to lose that on any issues that we're presenting to the board or changes that we're making that would have this much of an impact on staff and students. But we obviously can't change what happened in the past. So we're at this point where we just have to decide what next steps are, and that this will obviously be brought to the full board, but we just wanted to bring it for discussion with you guys tonight.
So my one question is that Right Way would help consider a change without a financial impact. If there was a negative impact, is the negative impact are there certain measures or exactly is there anything you could just say it's not working and they'll go back to the drawing board?
So if we came to them and said this just didn't work for us,
right,
we need to switch this back, that they would work with us to get it switched back.
Okay. Andy, do you have any questions?
Well, yeah. So look, the truth of the matter is that none of this is getting written in, right? I mean, this is just they're pledging to work with us after we go through the next year, right?
I'm not sure. We could ask them. I bet she'd write us an email.
Well, so here, that might be an interesting thing to do. I mean, just to
Mhm.
try to get something recorded, but I think that it's important to just I think it's important to close the door on the contract and just move forward. I would say that this isn't a monetary issue entirely, but I think it's unlikely. Maybe I'm wrong. I think it's unlikely that we would switch start times after 1 year. Certainly, I think it's unlikely we would do it if no one else wanted to as well. Because we'd still be odd person out, and then all the other schools would be scheduled, in the same way. So I'm not sure that we're going to go there. I appreciate, looking into it though and trying to get some additional assurances. But I think it's really important as we're about to start school year that we get this wrapped up and solidified. Have the other districts okayed the final version of these two contracts yet?
Yeah.
Yep, we're the last one.
So I mean, we're probably not going to get any other changes, written in. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I did forget to mention too that all the business managers agreed that they would go out to RFP next spring. That was another piece that I forgot to
Yeah.
mention.
Well, yeah, and we talked about that. I think is the much more important, piece of this, and as we
Mhm.
kind of, look at this long term, which is strategically, we have to go to RFP, possibly individually, which we can all do, but as a consortium, definitely to make sure that we maintain, some leverage in terms of what's going on. So I think you got a good handle on it, and I'm looking forward to getting this thing wrapped up.
Mhm. And I
That's
know
all
I'm
I
new
have.
to the game, but I would say every conversation or meeting that I've had with them has been really positive.
Good.
As far as like, how can we make this work? What can we do moving forward? Problem solving, giving us some of those, other options. I felt that they've been really responsive and really positive. And I know I'm new. I'm new to the stage of working with them, but so far I haven't seen anything, any red flags.
Well, new or not, I think I'm glad that you feel positive. That's good. I mean, I'm glad that you feel positive, because I think that just helps everything moving forward, that you feel like you've got a good feel on the conversation moving forward. So,
Yep.
And they've been really flexible with some of our ideas. Like we've talked about, the whole idea with middle school, if you've got like 10 kids on a block, how much could you eliminate a bus by doing some of that? And we talked about even piloting that in the spring. Like they would work with us to try it, for a month or so at the end of this school year to see how it worked for families and worked for kids. You know what I mean? And so I like that they're flexible and they're willing to do some of those things and be creative, even just trying things out to see how we can,
Mm.
be more efficient,
good.
save some money.
Yeah, right.
Right.
All right, well, thank you. So the next item is short-term borrowing.
So I know in the past, short-term borrowing would be coming to the board. So Allison and I met with PMA, who we currently work with as one of our financial advisors, and they have a process that allows them to handle the bids. There's no extra cost for us because we already are have a relationship with them. But what we liked about it is they handle all bidding and all of the paperwork. Essentially, it would still go through Quarles and Brady. It just is very helpful that PMA would help with the front end of stuff. And when we met with them, it's the same information that we provide to them. So it's our budget, what our historical cash balances have been for the past year. And then, like I said, they do all the work of bringing in the bids, and then they just show me these are the bids that you have offered, and it's going through a pool of, I believe it's up to 18 districts. So we would still be able to get the amount that we would need. So hopefully I'll be able to bring that to our September board meeting, and then we'd be able to start the short-term borrowing in October.
So historically, has the district gone through this process of bidding out, or how has this process been in the past? How is this different?
So what it is in the past, the person in my role would work with Quarles and Brady's and say, this is what our historical expenses are, this is what our cash balance is, what are we eligible to actually retain for short-term borrowing? And then they would send out the bids to all of the different banks and brokers and everything. And then the district would decide which one is the best one. And there's a lot of negotiating and percentage rates, and they can still do all of that. But I just wanted to have somebody else with that strong expertise that has historical knowledge with our district
Mhm.
be a part of having a second eye. Just with being new to our district, I just wanted to have a second set of eyes. And I really like that they're willing to be able to basically do like the grunt work of getting all the bids in, because it's very, very time consuming.
No, I bet.
And Lindsay, correct me if I'm wrong, but did they also say because they have so many districts
Mhm.
that they're going out to bid for, that they can get better rates
Oh.
versus just us on our own? So I
Mhm.
thought that was also a really nice benefit.
Mhm.
I was gonna ask that portion of it because, one thing is that when in the past, it seems like we've always, done it alone. And so if we're going to something that's, more competitive, where there's, other people, if it gets us better rate, that's great. Certainly if it gets us more options, that's always a good thing.
Well, one of the other things is I really wanted to look at what our cash flow is. Like, I think in the past we've borrowed anywhere between 5.2 and 5.7. And just with looking at where we're at right now, I just want to make sure, like, this year the plan would still do the same amount. But in the future, if we don't necessarily have to borrow as much, I think it would be beneficial.
Yeah. Right. All right. Thank you. The next item up for discussion is item D, which is private paid transportation DPI waiver.
So what that is, and actually, I don't know, this is something that I wanted to be approved at the next board meeting, but really all I need is Andy's signature. So I'm not 100% sure how that would work. But all it is that we are responsible for paying any students that would attend a private school. We will pay that private paid transportation contract. And this year, a big issue that came up is because so many kids were virtual, the cost for private pay skyrocketed with COVID. And so a lot of districts contacted DPI and said, just because of such a high inflation rate of the reimbursement rate, they're allowing us to submit a waiver so that we only have to pay out the 1920 rate, which is quite a bit savings. And rather than it was like an additional $5 per mile if we were to do the 2021 rate. So this waiver is just saying that we would like DPI and all of the K-8s and Nicolay are signing this waiver so that we have the lower rate of 1920.
So I understand the waiver completely, but my question is, were the private schools that we provided transportation dollars for, were they all open last fall? Like all our district students that went to private schools, were they all open and in person, or were they virtual? And if there are kids that were virtual, were they still allowed the transportation dollars?
No, you're only able to get reimbursement for rates for days that you were in school, but they're not being reimbursed for days that they were virtual.
Got it. Okay. All right. Andy, do you have any questions?
No, not at all. I think the board will be very happy to sign the waiver.
Right.
Thanks.
Just out of curiosity, how long has this been a rule in Wisconsin that districts have to provide transportation dollars for people who choose to go to private schools, private or parochial schools? I
actually asked this question in my former district because in my former district, it was a lot of money that was paid out, and it's from the 90s. It's been a long time. It's definitely something that should be revisited because it costs districts a lot of money.
Right, it does.
Well, the rationale is every kid in the area has, an interest in getting to school safely. The problem is that, making public schools pay for it and not private schools. It's really unfair. But
yeah,
we're not going to be able to change that today.
No, good point. All right. Well, thanks for answering that question, Lindsay. All right. So then subject E is ESSER.
So I can start with this, Allison, and then if you want to add on to it.
Sure. We just really got to talk about the process.
So we've I'm submitting the claim for ESSER 1 spending. I think I've linked, I don't know if it's in there, but I'll give a breakdown at the next meeting of what all of ESSER 1 funding went to. It was basically 3 categories. It was technology. I don't think I have the numbers in there.
Do you want me to throw it up? Do you want me to put it up?
Sure. It doesn't have all the total numbers, but basically there were 3 categories. So it was instructional, technology, and then the other thing to just keep in mind is the mitigation is a portion of ESSER 1 we are obligated to give to our private school. So we only have one private school that they submitted a request for reimbursement. So it ended up being about 7,000. So in ESSER 1, we were allocated the 113, but part of the 113 that we're submitting is 7,000 of it is for the private schools.
Okay.
We have 2 more rounds, ESSER 2 and 3. Part of requirements is that you have to retain all of your stakeholders' input. But we also want to just share a couple of things that we have already started to put in place with the ESSER fund. Summer Academy is a big one. In the past, Summer Academy was put through Fund 80 because I believe there was an amount that was purchased or that was paid by families for Summer Academy. But this year we didn't charge anything. And if we put it through Fund 10, we're allowed to use that to count the membership, and that'll give us probably an additional $140,000. So we're putting it through Fund 10. And then the other thing is DPI put out a electronic connectivity survey. We had some families that filled it out. Unfortunately, it was kind of like when we were bombarding them with all the annual information. But what it is DPI just asked us to send out a survey to families to just address the digital technology gap. So it's just asking families, like, do you have access to a computer? Do you have something that is your child's device solely for school or is it work and home? The point of that survey is hopefully we can get some additional funding for our students. It would allow us to get about $400 per student if approved. So we definitely want to do that because it would be another good way to address learning gap with the technology that kids need to be able to keep in touch with schools. The other one is I know Danica has talked a lot about with our Concordia partnership. And that's another thing that we have the interventionists. So those are all going to be key pieces to help address that learning gap. And with ESSER 3, I believe there's a good chunk of it that has to be used toward learning gap. And then the literacy coaches, this is a big thing with ESSER, is you don't want it to necessarily be salaries. It should be more of a one-time expense, because if you use salaries or a position, how do you keep that like retained in a long term? So that's why it's not necessarily the literacy coach position, but it's for the professional development that we can use for them, that we would want to use those expenses. And then there are just different replacement books to bring in the instructional need for students. So there's a couple different things that we've talked about that we want to implement, but I know it's definitely something that we're still working towards and talking through. Another big piece that we want to address is the social and emotional and mental needs for students. And just, I know Allison and like the whole leadership team, we've talked about a couple different ideas and just kind of bring in potential things. So with one of the things we wanted to show you was MPS put out a survey to their communities, and we'd like to do something similar to that. But what it is it just gave categories and then allowed people to rank what was the importance for them. And so we'd like to be able to get obviously the community input, but make it a little bit more general and not necessarily commit to one thing until we have a better idea of what the need is. So
yeah, there's criteria just for getting input from the community. I'm sure it's like as a parent, I've received several emails from my children in their district on what would you like us to spend our ESSER money on? We want to have obviously an outline for families of some priority areas, like Lindsay said, and then get that feedback from staff, from community. Did you want me to click on this one? Wait.
It's up at the top. The blue, yep.
Okay,
there you
yeah.
go.
So we thought it would be nice to do something similar to this.
Okay.
So they outlined their areas of priority, and then they can go ahead and go in. They talk about attending like a focus group, which role they are with the community. And then they can go through the whole survey. And so we would definitely look to do something like that. And we have till the end of September, right, Lindsay?
Yeah.
To complete the survey or to give out the survey?
To get all the feedback.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping that we can roll something out probably within the next couple of weeks, just to get feedback and then be able to take the input from the community and the administrators and build a tentative plan.
And DPI lays out all the criteria for the different types of stakeholders and everything that you need to talk with.
Okay.
So this is one of those.
I just have a quick question about the Concordia partnership. How many district teachers ended up signing up to take the literacy courses through Concordia?
I would have to ask Jenica. I'm sorry, I don't
Okay,
know.
that's okay.
I can check with her and let you know.
Okay. Andy,
This is
is
one of-
there something else you want to say, Lindsay? I'm sorry, I kind of cut you off there.
No, I cut you off. I'm sorry. This is one of those things that I asked Karen that once we get it up, I'd want to put on the website all the information about ESSER, what are the qualifications, and what are the things that it can be used for, and then again also the survey. But I think just giving people the option to be able to see what it is, because I think there's so much conversation that everyone's like, well, why don't you give everybody a 10% salary bump or whatever. And I think it's just really important for people to realize, like, this is really used for one-time funds. Like, you can't promise the world and not be able to keep it in 3 to 4 years.
Yeah.
I think one of my favorite descriptions I heard was, there's a storm and you lose your roof and your insurance company writes you a check to replace it. And instead you take that check and you pay your mortgage. It's like, you just can't, these are for one-time expenses. They can't be for reoccurring.
Right. Andy, do you have any questions?
No, not at all. Thanks. So, and I think
Okay.
it's a good idea to put that up on the website.
Right. Okay. Gosh, that's it for
That's
the
it.
new business. So we're moving on to visitor participation. So I guess I'm just wondering, of the 3 people on here, is there anyone that has a question or comment or concern that they'd like to share during visitor participation? Okay, well, then we will close that up. And the last item is a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And I will second that. Voice vote, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, well, Lindsay, Allison, I'm wishing you all the best of luck next week when everyone comes back.
Same to you.
Thank you. I'll be with you in spirit. But my gosh, this is really